Hello, friends. Sleep Tight Stories, Sleep Tight Relax, and Sleep Tight Science are now available to play on Story Button, the device that makes it easy to listen to our shows and more without having to use a phone or tablet. This month, you can save $10 at storybutton.com when you use the code SLEEPTIGHT. Story Button, the home of imagination. For an ad-free listening experience, please check out Sleep Tight Premium. A link can be found in our show notes. Thank you. Hello, I'm Sheryl, and this is Sleep Tight Relax, a weekly bedtime show for kids who need a good sleep. In tonight's story, a young prince gets lost in an enchanted forest and stumbles upon a mysterious palace, where he unknowingly enters the service of a powerful magician. With the help of a magical black horse, the prince escapes the magician's clutches, sets out on a daring adventure, and ultimately wins the heart of a princess. Along the way, he discovers the true meaning of bravery, loyalty, and love, leading to a happily ever after. Before we get started with our story, take a moment to get cozy, comfortable, and relaxed. Close your eyes if you like and take a deep breath in through your nose. Feel the cool, fresh air fill your lungs. Now, slowly breathe out through your mouth. As you breathe out, imagine you're gently blowing a soft breeze through a forest, making the leaves rustle. Take another deep breath in. This time, picture the air filling you up with warm, golden light. Feel it spread throughout your body, making you feel calm and safe. Breathe out slowly again. Let go of any worries or thoughts, just like the wind blowing away little clouds in the sky. Let's do it one more time. Breathe in deeply, filling yourself with that air. Hold it for a moment, feeling the warmth and peace. And breathe out slowly, letting all your muscles relax. You can keep your eyes closed and continue taking deep breaths if you like, as we continue with our story, The Magician's Horse. Once upon a time, there was a king who had 3 sons. Now it happened that one day the 3 princes went out hunting in a large, enchanted forest at some distance from their father's palace. And the youngest prince lost his way, so his brothers had to return home without him. For 4 days, the young prince wandered through the vast, mysterious forest, sleeping on soft moss beneath the stars at night and surviving on roots and wild berries. Each night, the shadows seemed to whisper secrets, and the trees swayed as if alive with hidden magic. On the morning of the 5th day, he emerged in a wide clearing where a grand solitary palace stood. The palace was majestic, but strangely quiet, as though it had been forgotten by time itself. Intrigued and a little wary, the prince approached the palace. He pushed open the heavy, ornate doors which creaked as if they hadn't been moved in ages. Inside, he found rooms filled with luxurious but dusty furniture, faded tapestries, and statues that seemed almost lifelike in the dim light. The silence was overwhelming, as though the very walls were holding their breath. Finally, the prince entered a grand hall where a table was set with a feast of delicious foods and fine wines. Hungry and exhausted, the prince sat down and ate his fill. But no sooner had he finished than the table and its contents vanished, leaving him alone once more. This strange occurrence puzzled him, but he continued his exploration, hoping to find someone who could explain the mystery. As dusk began to settle, the prince heard the sound of footsteps echoing through the halls. An old man appeared at the top of a grand staircase, descending slowly, his long beard flowing like a waterfall of silver. His eyes were sharp and knowing, as if they could see straight into the prince's heart. "What brings you to my castle?" the old man asked, his voice rough but not unkind. "I lost my way while hunting in the forest," the prince replied, bowing respectfully. "If you allow me to stay, I will serve you faithfully." The old man nodded, a hint of smile playing on his lips. "Very well, you may stay. You will keep the fire in the stove burning, fetch wood from the forest, and care for the black horse in the stables. I will pay you $1 a day, and at mealtimes you will find the table set in the hall." The prince accepted the offer, not knowing that the old man was a powerful magician and that the fire in the stove was no ordinary flame. If the fire ever went out, the magician would lose much of his power. Days passed and the prince worked diligently. The castle, though grand, felt lonely, with no other souls in sight, and the prince often found himself wondering about the secrets it held. One day, as he tended to his duties, the prince accidentally let the fire burn low. Just as the last embers began to fade, the magician stormed into the room, his eyes blazing with anger. "How could you let the fire burn so low?" the magician growled, his voice like thunder. "You've nearly destroyed everything." The prince, heart pounding, quickly added more wood, and the fire roared back to life. The magician's gaze softened slightly, but his voice was stern as he warned, "Let this be your last mistake, or you will regret it." Feeling humbled, the prince retreated to the stables, where he sat in silence, brooding over his near failure. To his surprise, the black horse which he had tended so carefully spoke to him in a gentle, soothing voice. "Do not be discouraged," the horse said. "Come closer, for I have something important to tell you. Fetch my bridle and saddle from the cupboard and take the bottle beside them. The ointment in the bottle will make your hair shine like pure gold. Then gather all the wood you can and pile it onto the stove until the fire blazes high." The prince did as the horse instructed. He saddled and bridled the horse, then applied the ointment to his hair until it gleamed like the sun. With renewed determination, he built a roaring fire in the stove, feeding it until the flames licked the ceiling. Soon the fire grew so intense that it set the palace roof ablaze. "Hurry back to me," the horse urged. "There is no time to lose. In the cupboard, you will find a mirror, a brush, and a riding crop. Bring them quickly, mount my back, and we will escape before the palace is consumed." The prince followed the horse's instructions to the letter. As soon as he was in the saddle, the horse galloped away with incredible speed, leaving the burning palace far behind. The wind rushed past them, carrying with it the scent of smoke and the crackling of flames. Meanwhile, the magician, returning to his palace, found it in smoldering ruins. His eyes flashed with fury as he realized what had happened. Without a moment's hesitation, he mounted another horse and set off in pursuit, determined to reclaim his prized possession. As they rode through the forest, the black horse's sharp ears picked up the sound of pursuit. "Look back," the horse said, "and see if the magician is following." The prince turned in his saddle and saw a cloud of dust and smoke in the distance. "He's coming," the prince exclaimed, his heart pounding. "We must go faster," the horse replied, and he quickened his pace, galloping like the wind itself. After some time, the horse spoke again. "Look back and see if he's gaining on us." The prince glanced over his shoulder and saw that the magician was much closer now. "He's gaining fast," the prince said, anxiety crawling into his voice. "Throw the mirror on the ground," the horse instructed calmly. The prince threw the mirror, and as it struck the earth, it shattered into 1,000 pieces. In an instant, the shards transformed into a vast, shimmering lake, its waters deep and treacherous. The magician's horse, unable to stop in time, plunged into the water. The magician struggled to pull his horse to safety, but the delay bought the prince and the black horse precious time. But the magician was relentless. After escaping the lake, he resumed his pursuit, his fury driving him onward. "Dismount and listen," the horse said, his voice urgent. The prince slid from the saddle and pressed his ear to the ground. "I can hear the earth tremble beneath his approach. He's getting closer," the prince reported, fear tightening his chest. "Get back on," urged the horse, "and I will run faster than before." They galloped at breakneck speed, the landscape blurring around them as they raced against time. "Look back once more," the horse said after a while. "Is he still following?" "Yes," the prince answered, "but he's still some distance away." "Then we still have a chance," said the horse, though his voice carried a note of urgency. A little later, he spoke again. "Look back now." "He's almost upon us," the prince cried. "The flames from his horse's nostrils are nearly at our backs." "Throw down the brush," the horse commanded. The prince threw the brush to the ground, and it instantly transformed into a thick, impenetrable forest. The trees were so dense and twisted that not even a bird could pass through. The magician's horse skidded to a halt, unable to take another step. The magician, furious, had no choice but to turn back once more to fetch an axe. It took him a long time to chop through the forest, but finally he emerged and resumed his chase. As the magician closed in again, the horse spoke one last time. "We must make one final stand. Throw down the riding crop." The prince did as he was told, and in the blink of an eye, the riding crop turned into a wide, rushing river. The magician urged his horse into the water, but as they waded deeper, the magic flames that powered the magician began to sputter and fade. With a final hiss, the flames went out, and both the magician and his horse were swept away, disappearing without a trace. The prince sighed in relief. "They are gone at last," he said, his voice trembling with exhaustion. "Now you may dismount," the horse said kindly. "The danger has passed, and the magician is no more. Beside that brook, you will find a willow wand. Strike the earth with it, and a door will appear." The prince did as the horse instructed. The door opened into a large, vaulted stone hall, its walls glimmering with faint magical light. "Lead me into that hall," said the horse, "for I will rest here. But you must continue your journey through the fields until you reach a garden. In the midst of that garden is a king's palace. When you arrive, ask to be taken into the king's service. And remember, never let anyone see your golden hair." The prince promised, tying the scarf tightly around his gleaming hair. He then set out through the fields until he reached a beautiful garden, vibrant with colorful flowers and lush greenery. Beyond the garden, he saw the towering walls and gleaming spires of the palace. At the garden gate, he met the head gardener, a kindly old man with twinkling eyes. "What brings you here, young man?" asked the gardener. "I seek to serve the king," replied the prince humbly. The gardener, seeing the prince's humble appearance, said, "You may work under me in the garden, tending to the flowers and sweeping the leaves from the paths. You'll have $1 a day, a horse to help with the work, and food and drink." The prince accepted the offer and began his work in the garden. But each day, he saved half of his food and secretly carried it to the vaulted hall beside the brook, where the black horse awaited him. The horse thanked him for his loyalty and friendship, for their bond had grown strong through their shared trials. One evening, as they sat together after a long day's work, the horse spoke to the prince. "Tomorrow, a large company of princes and noble lords will gather at the king's palace. They come from distant lands, seeking the hands of the king's 3 daughters. The princesses will each carry a diamond apple, which they will toss into the air. Whoever catches the apple will be chosen as their groom. You must be nearby in the garden tending to your duties. The apple of the youngest princess, who is the smartest and most beautiful of the sisters, will roll past the suitors and stop at your feet. Pick it up quickly and keep it safe." The next day, when the suitors had gathered in the grand courtyard of the palace, everything happened just as the horse had said. The princesses emerged radiant and graceful, and each threw their diamond apple into the air. The apple of the youngest princess rolled past the eager suitors and came to rest at the feet of the young gardener, who was busy sweeping leaves from the garden path. The prince quickly stooped down, picked up the apple, and slipped it into his pocket. As he did so, the scarf around his head shifted slightly, revealing a glimmer of his golden hair. The youngest princess, who had been watching closely, noticed his golden hair, and in that moment felt a connection to the humble gardener. She realized he was someone special, but she kept this secret in her heart. Curious about his true identity, she quickly shared her feelings with her father, the king. Though at first surprised, the king saw the honesty in his daughter's eyes and knew he had to respect the path that fate had laid before them. The next day, the palace was decorated with beautiful garlands and lights, and a grand wedding was held for all three princesses. The youngest princess, filled with love and curiosity, moved with her new husband to the small gardener's cottage, where their life together began. Sometime later, a great war broke out in the land, and the king and his son-in-laws were called to battle. The youngest daughter's husband had only an old, weary horse, and though he was determined not to be left behind, his horse could not carry him far. Reluctant to abandon his duty, the prince dismounted and made his way to the brook, where the black horse awaited him. "Saddle and bridle me," the horse said, "and then go into the next room, where you will find a suit of armor and a sword. Put them on, and we will ride to battle together." The prince did as he was told. When he emerged, clad in shining armor, he looked so brave that no one would have recognized him as the humble gardener. The black horse carried him swiftly to the battlefield, where the king's forces were struggling against a fierce enemy. But when the mysterious warrior on the black horse appeared, striking fear into the hearts of the enemy, the tide of battle turned. The enemy fled, leaving the king victorious. The king and his other son-in-laws cheered and hailed their unknown champion. But before they could approach him, the black horse rose into the air, carrying the prince out of sight. Twice more the prince returned to the battlefield, and twice more he turned the tide of war. But on the third day, the prince was wounded in the heat of battle. The king, seeing the blood on the warrior's leg, rushed to his side and bound the wound with his own handkerchief, which bore the royal crest. The king begged the prince to rest and be carried back to the palace. But the prince, determined to protect his secret, mounted his black horse and disappeared once more. When the prince returned home, weary from battle, he lay down to rest. His wife, noticing the blood-stained handkerchief around his leg, gently unwrapped it and was shocked to see her father's crest. Realizing the truth, she ran to the palace and brought her father and brothers to the gardener's hut. There, they found the prince asleep, his golden hair gleaming on the pillow. When the king saw the prince, he was filled with joy and wonder. He knew at once that this was the hero who had saved his kingdom. There was great rejoicing throughout the land, and the king kept his promise, rewarding his son-in-law with half the kingdom. The prince and his wife ruled wisely and well, their love strengthened by the trials they had faced. And though the black horse was never seen again, the prince always remembered the loyal companion who had helped him achieve his destiny. And so they all lived happily ever after. If you are awake, I would like you to whisper to yourself or say in your mind, "I am brave, just like the prince who faced challenges with courage. I can find solutions to problems, even when things seem difficult. I believe in myself and my ability to achieve great things. I am strong and can overcome any obstacle that comes my way. I am calm, relaxed, and peaceful. Good night. Sleep tight.